the Symphony Orchestra. I have been playing the bass for about 45 years or so, and I really love it. For a living, actually, I now am a public librarian. But I still play for enjoyment, and I really like it a lot.
Why does the bass have so many different names?
Yes, that's a good question. There are lots of names for the bass, and so there's string bass, there's bull bass, there's contrabass, there's all kinds of things. But if you were going to look it up in an encyclopedia, the official name is a double bass, okay? So you really probably need to keep that in mind. So the reason that it's called a double bass is if you follow the link to the cello might play this note. They'll play this note. They'll play this note, right? And the cello and the bass, we read the same music. But when they read this note and they play, and we read the note, it sounds like this. It's one octave lower. So back in the day, they called it a double bass because you were doubling the bass line an octave lower from the cello, right? So a lot of times up until the Romantic period, a lot of the double bass and cello music is exactly the same. And so a string instrument really makes its noise or produces sound because it has strings running along the length of its body. Now everybody thinks this is really big and it's really heavy and everything like that, and it's not, because to be honest with you, it's just a hollow box. All this really is just a hollow box. But what that does is it helps produce the sound. So when I either pluck it with my finger, or I use a bow, all the air that's in here and the space that's in here, the string comes, it vibrates, it comes across what's called the bridge, and then that sends the vibrations down into the body, and then from there it produces the sound. Okay, a lot of people think that it's really loud too because it's so big, but again, it's not such a loud instrument. I mean, a trumpet is a lot louder than the bass. And so I'm always going to lose that battle, right? So in any case, so I started playing when I was 8. I know you're thinking, was he this tall when he was 8? I'm like, no, I wasn't this tall when I was 8, but they make smaller basses. And so any one of you can play the bass if you want to. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to be so huge. You don't have to be you can be short and play the bass. It doesn't really matter. They have lots of different sizes, and you just start out as a beginner and you eventually get up to this size bass. It's kind of interesting. Most people play a 3/4 size bass. Almost all the basses that you'll see in an orchestra really are a 3/4 size bass. This is a 3/4 size bass. You have to be like 6'7", 6'8", or taller than that in order to play a full size bass. I can't play one, so it's just too big for me. So the way we tune our instrument, we tune the strings to certain notes. Okay, and then what we do is we press down the string to make them shorter in length, and then that makes the tone go higher, right? So you hear this is open, right? But if I put my finger here, it's a little bit higher, right? If I go here, a little bit higher. If I go way up here, it's a little bit higher. And so that's how we make all the different notes that we can make. So the bass, its function in the orchestra is because it's so low, it really is a supportive instrument. It's kind of like the foundation of the string section, okay? So it's kind of like building a house. If you build a house and you put something that's not very strong on the bottom of the house, and then you start building the house on top of that, you know what? The house is probably going to fall. It won't be really a safe house for you to be in. But if you have something that's good and strong on the bottom, then you can build it. So when a composer writes a music, for example, they usually, while the violins are wailing away and playing all their solos and everything like that, we're usually going, right? We play like long notes, If we see a bunch of notes, we run and hide, because bass players do not like that, right? We don't like a lot of notes. We like to be down here just supporting everything and doing our job. So One of the interesting things about the bass is that's different from the other stringed instruments. Most of the other stringed instruments that you see, when you see the violin players or the cello players, they hold their bow with their hand on top. And that's called the French style of playing. So you see the violinists and they're all playing like this, and the violas are playing like this, the cellos are playing like this. Some bass players play with the French bow. Okay? But there also is a different style of bow, which is actually a little bit older for the bass, and it's the German style. And so a lot of players also play with their hand on the bottom of the bow. And so that's a German style. Now, don't be confused. That doesn't mean that all the people that have played the German style, all those bows are made in Germany, right? No. You can make the German style bow anywhere. It just depends on how you play it. And there are good and bad points and everything. So if you notice here, all these little fibers and everything, right? This is really hair from a horse's tail. So they take horse hair from the tail of a horse and they put it on the bow, right? And so what we do is you tighten and loosen the bow with this little screw down here at the end, right? So if you have it too loose, like this, you don't get a very good sound, right? If you have it too tight, it's too hard to play. So you have to kind of find that medium balance where you can play and get a good sound. Okay, so that's part of just a little song. That's basically what a bass sounds like. You can tell it's kind of got a woody sound to it. You know, it's not brass like a trumpet or it's not mellow like a flute. It has its own kind of sound. I wanted to show you that the bass can play up high, okay? So I know that everybody thinks that we spend all our time playing all these notes down here, but we can play really high. So I'm going to play a little diddly for you from a solo that's up high, okay? It goes... Pretty cool, huh? Right? You didn't know that the bass could play up that high. That's what we call it bass. The bass players call that the nosebleed section. You know what I mean? If we have to play way up there like that, but most of the time we don't play up there. We only play that for solos and things like that. So another important thing that the bass does is, and another way that you can make different sounds, and all the strings do this, but the bass especially, is that sometimes we put our bow down and we use our fingers to play, right? So that's called pizzicato. It's a Italian term, but it really means to pluck the bass, right? So you can, right? It gives a kind of a different sound, right? So I'm going to play something on my bow for you first. And then I'm going to play it again with the pizzicato, and you tell me whether you can hear the difference between the two, okay? So now listen to it with the pizzicato, okay? right? But it makes a different sound. So there are a lot of composers that want you to play different kinds of sounds depending upon what sound they want with the rest of the orchestra. So sometimes we're pizzing in the orchestra and sometimes we're using the bow. So now my bass, I have owned my bass for more than 30 years. And people ask me different questions about it. Now, it's not the prettiest bass. As you can see on the back, it's all scarred up and everything, and it's all been patched several times and things like that. But the poor guy is about 150 years old, right? And so, I mean, look, if I look this good when I'm 150 years old, I'm going to be doing well, right? I mean, same with you. So I've had this bass, and I actually have a name for my bass. A lot of people name their instruments, and my bass's name is Oscar. And so when my kids were growing up, I used to say, "There's Oscar, don't touch Oscar. Just be careful of Oscar." So another question I get is, how much did you pay for it? Okay, so when I bought this bass, it cost me $8,500, which is a lot of money. But it's not like you have to come up with all of that money. This is the fourth bass that I've owned. So like I explained before, I had a smaller bass and I bought that. It wasn't that much money. And then later on I practiced and I got a little bit bigger and I got it better and I sold the bass and I got another bass. I got Herman Munster, was my second bass. He was a nice good bass. And then I practiced some more and I played some more and then I saved up some money and then I sold Herman and I put some more money, got a better bass named Helmut, and I had him in college. And then after college, when I was ready to go out and try to play, then I needed a good enough bass to try to get into a symphony. And so then I sold Helmut and then I got Oscar. So
how tall is the bass?
So it's really kind of hard to say how tall the string bass is. So I'm 6'2", right? And you can see that my bass is a little bit taller than me. So this is probably, the bass is probably about 6'5", 6'6". But it also depends on how tall you are, how far you want to put the end pin out, right? So my end pin can go out pretty far. So if I'm really tall, I can make the bass be way up here, or I can put the end pin all the way in and make the bass really short down at the bottom, okay? So it just really depends on the player. Some players stand when they play. If you notice that I have a stool, I can't play on a chair. So all the other instruments in the orchestra, for the most part, all can play on chairs. But normally the bass player has to, we have to carry our own stools around if we want to sit down and play. So I admit that when I'm playing some jazz, and I usually stand because I like to dance, you know what I mean? Because it's more fun that way, you know. But in orchestra, when I'm more serious, then I have to pay attention to the conductor, then I want to sit down and then I sit in a stool. So yes, I hope you guys had a great time. I hope I could spark your interest in playing the bass. If you are interested at all, even if your school doesn't have one, there are places where you can rent them. And so I really want to thank you for allowing me to come, and thanking the Delta Symphony for allowing me to explain about the double bass. And I hope you guys have a great day.
I hope you enjoyed this video about the instruments of the orchestra. If you like this one, please check out our other videos and give us a like and subscribe to our channel.